I am presenting research material that I've been working on for this book, actually a trilogy of books on Tantra, but the first one is called The Tantric Universe and the All-Inclusive Human. And it's been an interesting dive into this field. I've been teaching Tantra for over 10 years, but the rabbit hole of classic Eastern philosophy and practices is very deep, so one never really gets to the end of that rabbit hole. But what has come up onto my radar to work on just in the past few weeks is this theme I'm calling the spiritual side or the spiritual nature of origami. We're going to learn about origami tonight, so I hope you all brought paper and so that we can do origami together.
Make some swans.
Make some swans.
Misread the invite.
You misread the invite. Yes. You can all breathe a sigh of relief.
We could do human origami.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But it exists.
Yeah, it does.
Orgasm. See?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
For some reason, when you say that word, it's considered funny and makes people giggle. Yes. So, what we're going to do is all say it together so we can bring that giggly energy into the space. Let's say it 3 times together. Orgasm.
Now slower.
Orgasm. Orgasm. Orgasm.
Sure, we're on Zoom is saying it loud too. In the public
Hey,
place.
yeah, everybody unmute. What are you doing?
To take this a little bit deeper, I thought we should do a go-around. And again, just to introduce yourself, say your name. You can say your pronoun. And what word, phrase, or image comes to mind for you when you think of the word orgasm?
Are you sure you don't want to share your images?
We're an adult audience here. This is not PG rated.
It's a natural part of life.
It's a natural part of life, as we're going to see. And somehow it's become a bit taboo to talk about it. But we are in, an environment here where we're researching and coming to understand Tantra. To get a little technical for a moment here on the dictionary definition of orgasm. Well, it's kind of obvious. It points to the thing of organ. Orgasm, organ. And in its original usage spoke of the swelling of an organ with fluids. Yeah, that it was the swelling or burgeoning of an organ with fluids. It was only later used in a way to describe the release of the fluids, to have this ejaculation, which of course applies to men and women. Both have ejaculates. So yeah, that was the original use. And also the word swell, for something to swell, which I thought was an interesting word, because the word swell can refer to something physically swelling. But when Julia came in tonight, I said something to her and she said, "Oh, that's swell."
Yeah. She's already getting on brand.
You're getting on brand. But it's a different use of usage of the word swell, you were really referring to something of, like a spiritual state. To say something is swell refers to it as being superlative. Like it's really great. That's superlative. That's swell. And there are different usages of the word swell, but they actually kind of come together because when there is this physical swelling of the organ for orgasm, there is also this moving towards the spiritual state of something higher, something superlative, something of really a greater state of mind, which is what we're pointing towards here in terms of the spiritual nature of an orgasm, is its ability to give us an altered state of consciousness. An altered state of consciousness. But before we go there, let's bring it back down to earth and the physical and look at how this thing around orgasm really comes out of a natural instinct, a natural physical instinct. And in fact, humans are not the only ones that experience this. This is found throughout the animal kingdom. It's been observed and documented within the world of mammals, primates orgasm, dolphins orgasm, rodents orgasm. So it's not something exclusive to humans on a physical level. It's really a natural instinct that is observed to drive a being towards a reward from mating. It's like a reward by engaging in a mating type of process, mating behavior. And of course we see this also in barnyard behavior, where people that have been on farms, I've been on farms, how barnyard animals, they go through this as a natural behavior of coming into heat. Anybody who's a farmer knows about animals coming into heat, and then they want to fornicate. When they're not in heat, they don't want to fornicate, but they naturally come into heat to fornicate, orgasm, and then the seed of the male is propelled into the female for fertilization. So on a physical level, it's kind of a natural reflex. It's a natural, you could even say mechanical reflex that takes place in response to certain stimuli. And we could even put it in the same category with other natural, physical, even mechanical reflexes. If you are feeling sick, if you've eaten something that's toxic to the body, you do what? You vomit. There's a vomiting, there's a retching, there's a gagging as a natural reflex in the body. Can you think of some of the other natural reflexes?
Too much liquid in your bladder.
Right. The reflex to urinate, defecate, sneeze.
Like if you have something in your eye goes.
Eye twitching.
I can't even see you, but I bet that was cute.
Eye twitch. Itching.
Itching.
Sweating.
Sweating.
Jumping. Like, startled.
Oh,
Being startled.
Yeah, like a twitching response.
Yeah.
Like if you touch something hot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the senses sense something hot. So there's a reaction. It's a reaction, a reflex.
Crying.
Crying.
Laughing.
Laughing. Yawning, coughing, burping, farting, breathing. Yeah. Sleeping. Yeah. It's amazing how much just naturally governs our being in an unconscious way. We're really not very much consciously participating in it. And this is where the orgasm becomes fascinating, because it can be an unconscious thing. I know when I was a teenager, I had lots of wet dreams. I'd wake up and the sheets would be wet. Sometimes just on the moment of waking, there'd be like an image in my mind that, for some reason, my body needed to release this in an unconscious or semi-conscious way. So there's this natural intelligence. And it's worth just taking a moment to be in gratitude for the natural intelligence that governs our homeostasis, the balance of things within our being. And yet, we can interface this natural intelligence with a higher intelligence. This is where we start to cross the threshold from just being more of an automaton, where things are being done for us, and we start to take on these powers of natural intelligence, and we interface it with higher intelligence. Hopefully the higher intelligence in us, or maybe the higher intelligence of a partner, to work with them, to go further with them, to explore them in their fullest potential. And we can include into this for a moment now Kundalini. We should talk about Kundalini, which can also be a natural reflex. People have unconscious or spontaneous Kundalini awakening, which is a non-physical energy that is said to reside within the pelvic region of our being, coiled like a spring, a spiral, you could say, that's ready to be energized and explode. That it can happen spontaneously for whatever reason. It can be triggered, but with Tantra, the idea is to work with that natural reflex, Kundalini, which is a natural intelligence, to utilize it, to direct it, and to benefit from this incredible power. And the Kundalini is really moving from the lower pole. Talk a bit about the poles, because there's the lower pole and then there's the upper pole. This Kundalini is said to be activated by the Shakti, the movement of the earth. Shakti is movement and magnetism. That when we work with the Shakti energy, it can activate this coil of latent energy, which is really a mirror of the will of the cosmos, the will of the universe. And that's the name of the second book I'm writing in the trilogy. It's called the All-Inclusive Chakra Stock, and Kundalini as the will of the cosmos. So the spiral can be awakened by this Shakti activation. But then there, at the other pole, is the electric pole, the Shiva pole, which is really something that sits in stillness, waiting for this Shakti excitement, for it to come down from the upper pole, this electric light information. that brings with it info energy. And really, in a nutshell, that is the tantric marriage that we're trying to achieve consciously. And I'm coming around to explain another reflex that I teach in my classes, which is working with the sneeze. Because the sneeze is like an orgasm. It's this powerful, explosive force. You're just sitting there and all of a sudden there's this poof! And if you learn to do what I call a Shiva sneeze, it's bringing electricity through the head and into the body. Because when you have a blast of air through your nostrils, it produces what's known as piezoelectricity. It's a form of electricity that's created when you have that bolt of air coming through the nostrils. It produces piezoelectricity, or what I call sneezoelectricity, that is enlivening the being from this direction down. So the main point here is to appreciate all of the reflexes that are naturally in your body and to work with them consciously. And that is going to enhance your ability to work with orgasm consciously and ultimately kundalini consciously. And in doing that, we're going to build a bridge between our physical nature and the spiritual nature. And that's what the Egyptians were doing in building structures like the pyramids. The pyramids with all the weight of the stone and the granite was creating piezoelectricity. Piezoelectricity being gathered from the environment around, along with the earth movement, the Shakti of the earth movement beneath the pyramid, creating tantric marriage in the middle of the pyramid. And some people say the word pyramid, pyramid, actually means fire in the middle, producing fire in the middle and in the heart. And yeah, just to jump ahead for a moment here, to work with orgasm, we have to move away from this genital-centric idea, which, if there's too much emphasis put on that, it's too much emphasis that's creating an imbalance. And we're seeing that in our culture with the decline in potency and fertility and erectile dysfunction and whatnot, because there's too much emphasis on the genitals and ejaculation for men, but with both male and female anatomy, and where I'm going with this, it's beyond male and female. It's when we get into the LGBTQ plus, we really that's why I'm calling the book The All-Inclusive Human. It's because we're moving beyond this binary model of Barbie and Ken. But what I'm saying here is there's a threefoldness. There's not only the orgasm of the genitals, there can be a heartgasm and even a headgasm. We'll see how much I can get into the details around that. But in the blurb I sent out around this, I said, don't sell yourself short with sex. Don't sell yourself short with sex. Go Tantra. And this is why I've been teaching Tantra, because I've been seeing how people have been selling themselves short with very limited ideas around sex that's far too genital centric. And it's putting people out of balance and really making them not only impotent and dysfunctional sexually, it's making them impotent spiritually, that they cannot hold the full charge of the cosmos within them and be potent spiritually, which is to say they can impregnate the earth, the physical earth, with their spiritual nature. That's going Tantra, when you really realize that you can impregnate the earth with what you download spiritually. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I do in my work. I'm downloading stuff all the time, and I'm impregnating your minds and other people's minds with ideas. So
Consensually.
I hope you're all here, so I think you're all consenting to
We're all
this.
gonna be pregnant.
Yes.
Our minds.
You're going to go home and give birth to your own new thoughts.
I'm gonna name my thought Jesse.
Nice. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Thank you. Thank you.
God,
So I'm hoping you're starting to see that there's a difference. There's a vast difference between sex and Tantra. And then there's also another thing in the middle that's quite popular called sacred sexuality. And that's kind of a half step towards Tantra, where people are treating sexuality beyond the barnyard behavior as something sacred. You know, there's more consensualness around it, there's more respect, there's more of a consciousness, but it's not necessarily Tantra. Good, you get that. Now, in Jewel and the Lotus, which is the textbook that I use in the Body, Mind, and Spirit boot camp that I've been doing for a number of years, and I'm going to do wave 14 of it coming up sometime in the future. In chapter 1, it talks about Tantra being a path of will and surrender. And there's another polarity there. Will and surrender. And we know that with orgasm, both apply. There has to be a certain amount of will brought into sexual activity. Right? You have to have the will, and the will really applies more to this reproductive organ area. This is more our thinking zone. This is more our feeling realm. This is more of our will. And so there has to be will put into it, the right kind of will. And then, of course, there's also the surrender side. You get active sexually with someone, become intimate, there's will, there's touch, there's movement, there's things that you're doing to each other. But then there is this moment where it's letting go and surrendering to something else that in a way takes over. Like all of these different reflexes. A sneeze just takes over, a yawn just takes over, a laugh just takes over, an orgasm just takes over, and learning to surrender to that is just as important as learning to put and apply the right kind of will to this. So this is an important duality, polarity to understand, will and surrender, because that's also going to be needed to elevate orgasm to its fullest potential as a spiritual practice. I just want to take a moment to see if anybody can relate to that, or anybody wants to speak to this whole thing about will and surrender. Jeremy.
So, if you're engaging in a partner practice, when you talk about will and surrendering, is it that one person is willing and another is surrendering, or that both are kind of moving in between both? And sometimes both could be surrendering simultaneously while not being still, but perhaps being in a surrendering state of physical movement.
yeah, I don't think there's any black and white thing around it. You know, we're moving in and out of will and surrender in a fluid kind of way. And when you start to look at the practices, you know, some of the partner practices in the latter chapters of this book, you can see, you know, there's certain things where one person will be doing more will activity, more active, and the other person is more in a receptive.
Even in the first lesson, there's a practice where one partner kind of lays down and the other one gives them sensory experiences with like ice and a feather and that kind of thing. So that's also kind of a more black and white separation of will and surrender between people.
Yeah, that's a beautiful example where one person's completely in a receptive, surrendering state, and the other person's giving. They're in their will and giving to the other to catalyze something, so that that surrendering can potentially lead to the catalyzing of an orgasm and that explosion. But if we're looking at the spiritual side of orgasm, that it can also not only be a physical genital centric thing, but something of the heart and something of the mind as well. And this is where, you know, the skill comes in to take it beyond a physical thing to become a spiritual practice. Well, thank you for bringing that up. And so I'll jump into that piece now, because it's an important piece that I'm taking on in the writing of this book, because Tantra often is viewed as very binary natured, and that it's designed more for the heterosexual Barbie and Ken type of model.
Heterosexuals aren't necessarily Barbie and Ken.
Why not?
Because Barbie and Ken are plastic.
Well, I'm using that as a metaphor.
Yeah.
Barbie and Ken, you know,
I'm not
you got your stereotypical woman and your stereotypical guy.
Fiona, if you will.
Yeah.
And I'm not denying that there's a binariness
Yeah, and I
within
can't
the
do
male
binary
anatomy and the
stuff.
female anatomy. But my book's called The All-Inclusive Human,
Mhm.
which includes the physical, the etheric body, the star body, the astral body, or the manas, and then the spiritual I, the ego. I'm working with those 4 levels, and the more you move away from the physical, the less binary it is, where at the highest principle it's androgynous.
Mhm.
And this is really where Tantra wants to lead us, is beyond the physical.
Mhm.
Tantra is going through the physical to activate, but to, you know, as a spiritual practice, a spiritual orgasm can really take us to the highest principle, which is androgynous and is non-binary.
Mhm.
And when you understand a greater model than the physical Barbie and Ken, then this opens up Tantra to everyone, LGBTQ+, because we're all actually cosmopolitan. We're all really of a universal nature that is non-binary. And this binary thing has its place and usefulness, but it's also a prison and becomes useless to a certain point if that's the only layer that we're working with. And I'm very excited to break this open in my writing, because Tantra is meant to be accessible for all humans, but it's the ability to move our awareness to these higher levels of us that are less binary, and to tap into a much greater power than just the physical arousal between a penis and a vagina, because it's supposed to be a spiritual orgasm. I'm talking about a spiritual orgasm that doesn't necessarily even involve the genitals. It can be an orgasm of the heart, it can be an orgasm of the head, it can be an orgasm of all three. And
so therefore, like, going back to the self, like the will and the surrender, and like actually, like, both are required to generate the energy for orgasm or orgasmic potential, but it doesn't really matter who or how that dance is happening.
exactly. So same-sex partners who understand will and surrender, and they understand all polarities. I work a lot with vacuum and pressure, so there can be a movement, a circuit of energy from positive to negative, from negative to positive. We have that adaptability as human beings. It does require transcendental thinking. It does require going beyond the binariness of the male and female anatomy.
And it like opens up so many more ways that we can expand and evolve.
Exactly.
Beyond the boxes of
And
binary.
that's the operative word. It's about evolution. As we grapple with this and the concepts around it, it's going to help us evolve our being from beyond the box of a male anatomy or a female anatomy, or even needing a partner at all.
Right, exactly.
Let me just speak to that for a moment, because when I started getting interested in this about 15 years ago with a partner I was with, Laura, and we took up a study of Jewel in the Lotus with a group of people here, and from that we launched the Body, Mind and Spirit Boot Camp. I was working with a partner. I was learning with her, and we were going through the practices, and so I cut my teeth on Tantra doing what's known as the left-hand path. The left-hand path of working with a partner. Now there's also the right-hand path where you work solo, also called auto-intercourse.
Oh wow, so sexy.
Very sexy, yes. Has nothing to do with cars. You're not having... Yeah.
Excuse me, I'll be back in 10 minutes.
Has nothing
But-
to do with cars.
Maybe 15.
No, but the engines are running.
So now, at this phase of my life, that's what I'm working with. I'm working with the right-hand path, quite deliberately, decisively, and willingly. And when I first learned about Tantra, it's like, oh yeah, who's going to do the right-hand path unless you're maybe a loser, right? You can't get a partner, so you're just stuck doing it alone. No,
Jesse's evolved since then.
You've evolved since
I have evolved. I have evolved since then, because
Doesn't mean you don't have a partner on the right hand path, just maybe your partner isn't in the physical.
okay. Well, no, that's an interesting point. But anyways,
Everybody wants a partner.
And then you became big instead of big, right?
I'm very
It's
happy and committed to being exploring the right-hand path. I want to just take a moment to advocate for this, because it doesn't mean you're a loser. Because at the end of the day, we all need to be practicing the right-hand path.
Exactly. Your left
Yes.
hand path will be way better.
The first 3/4 of this book really is the right-hand path, learning the pranayamas, learning the yantras, the mantras, the mudras, etc., etc. Because you have to have self-mastery before you can really engage in will and surrender with another human being. It's a big deal to do Tantra with another human being. We're not talking about sacred sex. We're not talking about barnyard sex. We're talking about Tantra. which is a very tall order. And it's an even taller order to do the right-hand path. Because I am learning and training to do will and surrender within myself exclusively. And I'm working on developing really my own energetic structure, and in some ways learning to be hermetically sealed from other energies. And this is the third book. The third book's called Sacred Geometry, Sound Healing, Entity Clearing, and the Merkaba. And it's to support people. The third part is it's also energy sensitivity, sound healing, entity clearing, and the Merkaba being the geometric structure. Because this is what people need primarily, to have their own autonomous temple before you can really efficaciously and effectively and powerfully engage with another human being. Otherwise, it's going to always kind of backslide into maybe sacred sex and barnyard sex. So I'm really hot on this, the right-hand path, and just the evolutionary prerogative that's being asked of all of us who want to upscale our nature is to develop self-mastery first, and then you have more to bring to the table in a partnership. And in some ways it's harder to do the right-hand path than to be activated by somebody else. I mean, in some ways it's easy to just get turned on by the presence of another person and go down the road that way. How do you turn yourself on with will and then surrender to something higher that produces an orgasm within you? Head, heart, even genital. I know people that can produce genital orgasms in themselves without even touching themselves, just through meditation. That's a powerful practice. But this is all evolutionary. This is all, to step back from this and realize this is what both science and spirituality are looking for, is how can the human being evolve? Both science and spirituality is looking for the ways for the human to evolve. And this is one of the reasons why Tantra has been persecuted and repressed over the ages, is because when we engage with our all-inclusive nature, including the sexual apparatus, we really have a lot of power to evolve. You know how powerful it is when you get turned on. Woo! Shwang. It's something that's just it's a reflex that's beyond.
You're not easy to control.
And yet we need to learn how to harness the horsepower and sublimate, which comes from the same root as sublime, and ride the physical powers beyond the physical into energetic awareness, astral plane awareness, and ultimately connect with the spiritual world and the things we can download from there to participate in a transformation of the earth. This is an important point, that if we really want to be Tantrikas, we have to recognize this is an act of service to a much bigger paradigm than the self-service of my instant gratification of my genitalia. That's part of what's taking our civilization down. And I've been talking about how we have to move from being breast-centric to bindu-centric. I maybe shouldn't have brought that in because I'll ask what does that mean. But bindu state being that liminal state, whereas breast-centric is like feeding from the milk of this realm. We want to feed from the milk of the higher realm. So part of what's behind orgasm, of course, is not just something physical, the need to ejaculate, but is desire for both men and women. It's desire. And that word desire from the Greek desideri means of the stars. Desideri, of the stars. This thing of desire, whether it's in a goat in the barnyard or in you, it's really a cosmic force that does lead a goat to procreate and have offspring and continue its species, and same with humans. But if we can drive the desire so that it's not just about procreation, but lifting us to higher connection, then the desire is not driving us. And that's really the fulcrum. Does desire drive you, or are you driving the desire? And I learned a very simple formula back in my early 20s when I began doing spiritual trainings and things like that. The 4Ds. The 4Ds. Normally what drives you is desire, right? You have a desire and it's like, okay, going after the desire. And that desire is controlling you. It's driving you. But the first D is decision. You make a decision where you want desire to drive you. I'm trying to think of an example. Like maybe there's something you desire to do on the weekend, and there's something you don't desire, but you know you should do it. You desire to do that, you don't desire to do this, so you're going to go with the desire. No. If you make a decision and say, I know I should do this, then you're going to actually direct the desire in that direction. You can master your own desires by making decisions. So it's decision, then the desire will follow, and then the third D is the details. And the fourth D is the delivery. I make a decision, it directs the desire, we get into the details, we get the delivery. So you've done the thing you know you should do rather than running off following some whimsical desire. Is that clear? Very powerful.
I can speak of experience of the opposite.
Yeah?
When there's something that I know that I shouldn't do, but desire made me do it.
Yeah, I'm sure we all have examples.
Yeah. So would that be desire before decision?
Exactly. And that's the sort of thing that instead of making you a sovereign master, it turns us into fools. We end up doing foolish things, and we look like fools at the end of the day and at the end of our life. We'll go, wow, I just was following my desire. But to make a decision or a choice is a higher function. It's a spiritual function of not the body, but of the spirit, the ego. Capital E, ego. It's one of its functions to make choices. So when we make choices and direct our own desire, then we can take the power of the orgasm and that reflex and really direct it towards the expansion of consciousness, which is what Tantra is about. It's about expansion of consciousness. Ray, you got your hand up. Would you like to say something?
I just have a question about this decision before desire business.
Yeah.
You basically said you make the decision, which is a sovereign act, and then you said, and the desire will follow. What does that look like? That that you decide to do something. Let's say that you should do, but you're not really into doing it, but like
Okay,
you should
I've
do
got
it.
an example. I was up at my sister's cottage last week, and there was a lot of work to do. I had to fix the dock. I had to cut up wood. I wanted to go hiking. I love hiking up there. I could go hiking every day of the week in the woods, get lost in the woods. But I made a decision, no, this needs to be done. And once I made that decision, it became fun. It's like, okay, I'm going to work on the dock. I'm going to cut wood. And I got into it, and I desired it. And I felt a fulfillment of desire. But if I hadn't made a decision, then I would have been just grumpy and dragging my butt around and wishing I was doing something else. But this is the astral plane. This is the mind. The manas is very malleable, much more malleable than our physical skeletal structure. I
So
can
it sounds like you.
direct my physical
You
body,
like-
but I can direct my mind much more easily. Sorry?
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I was. Sorry to interrupt there. I was saying it sounded like that. It sounds like you invested your desire in this decision that you made.
Exactly. The desire will get on board once the higher principle of the ego makes a decision. A clear, concrete, 110% decision.
That's very powerful. Thank you so much.
It's a powerful way of self-mastery. And it'll trickle down into the sexual life of will and surrender.
I have a
Please.
another like a kind of almost a counter example, but like let's say like from a young age I had this desire that I had to like travel the world, let's say. In my life experience, that desire yielded very positive things, right? Like it was a desire that still kind of came before decisions in a way that it was like this dream that yielded very positive benefits. But then there's other more, I guess, harmful things where there's like temptation creating desire. So like is it necessarily about the chronology of the decision and the desire, or about like what's
No, it's about the alignment.
the alignment? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And what if your decision is to go after your desire? Like instead of, for example,
Yeah.
like if there is an individual that you would say, okay, I don't want to get sexual with this person, but the sexual desire would say yes. And then the
Happens all the
decision
time.
would be, my decision is to go after my desire and have that. Is that still in this concept?
You're saying the decision is to follow the desire
Follow
to
the
be
desire.
sexual with this person,
Yes.
even though part of
Even
you...
though it might not be good based on whatever judgment.
That's usually what turns us into fools at the end of the story,
But
right?
you are making a decision still.
Yeah, but if it's not aligned, then it usually, becomes a
Aligned with
lesson.
what?
Really, with the higher
From
principle.
your higher self.
Yeah.
I have something.
So the decision has to really come from a higher principle of our being, and that takes meditation, prayer, listening, and being honest with ourselves, because desire is a very slippery slope. Very slippery slope. It's a very powerful force, just like the desire to have an orgasm is a very powerful force, but if we just follow it without any kind of discernment, it turns us into fools. Yes, Patty.
I think for me anyways, and I do think people are different this way, but I might have something that I want to do and something else that I feel like I should do. It's not clear cut for me which is which, and there needs to be this like you were saying, to be centered, to be whole, but also to give space to that decision, because I might decide, okay, I think I desire to do this thing, maybe go to this event with these people or whatever, and this is going to be great, but maybe I should do this, and I actually don't know. I have a little bit of information, and I need to have that wholeness, but I also need the space to walk through, and then maybe a couple of other things happen during the day, a little like, oh yeah, something pushing me one way or the other, and I think, yeah, this is what I want to do, but that space is very important, that sensitivity.
Yeah, it's not necessarily black and white.
Yeah.
Coming to the right decision for ourselves. The whole cognitive activity that's to take place is a whole other subject. But right now, I want to talk about erections.
All right.
That's why we came.
Yes.
What?
Got out of that one. We got, before we come to the climax of the talk here tonight, because...
Standing at attention.
Sorry, that? Right?
I said, I'm standing at attention.
Standing at attention, good. Well, that's good, because both women and men have erections, right? And they can be both conscious and unconscious. They can happen while we're awake or asleep, right? I think both men and women have erections several times through the night of the penis or the clitoris. And that's mostly an unconscious type of thing. But we're trying to make it more conscious because, there's a lot of power in this zone of our threefoldness. So to understand this is valuable. For one thing, when it comes to erections, there is a binary thing between the male anatomy and the female anatomy. A male erection tends to be more outward, and the female erection is a more inward, even physical thing, but also on the next higher level, the energetic or the etheric. If a man has an erection and the energy goes out, it can lead to this outwardness and loss of energy. Energy goes out, there's a loss of energy, which is known as apana. But with the female anatomy, this erection being more of an inner thing, the energy is being put inward, and that can increase the energy in the female anatomy. And you see that when a male anatomy and female anatomy come together, the male erection then can lead to this energy going out. The female energy can lead to a higher activation of her state of being. And this is important because there's actually a polarity switch that's taking place. And this is described in Jewel in the Lotus, where after orgasm, a woman can switch more into her masculine energy. She's more active and awake. Whereas the male, he's moving more into his feminine energy. It looks like he wants to go to sleep, but this is an important thing to understand. He's not really going more asleep, he's going more inward. And that's really an important state for a male to go into. It's to go inward and be in that liminal bindu state. And the active partner can hold the other partner who's more liminal, be more passive, he's not falling asleep. But I know from my own experience, when the partner can hold that space for me, I can have really those spiritual openings, big spiritual openings, psychedelic experiences without substance, because I'm floating on the threshold. And yeah, so there's this polarity switch that takes place after orgasm, and consciousness needs to be brought to that so that we can experience the spiritual side of orgasm. And, if you go beyond the binariness and just look at same-sex relationships, that it still can take place. It's just a matter of bringing consciousness to it and working with it. So, what I didn't get to so much is about delay techniques, delaying orgasm, but I don't really need to go into that. Chapter 10 of this book has got basically what I was going to say about the different delay techniques that can hold it back. You can learn how to transmute the energy. You can learn how to gear it into Kundalini. And then ultimately you can learn how to just surrender and let it go. And this is all about self-mastery and helping each other to become greater masters of our all-inclusive nature. Because we're here to become alchemists of energy and learn to work with the physical, to go through the physical. That's the Tantric path. It's not to suppress sexual and the physical, but actually to go deeper into it, work with it, elevate it, and alchemize it. So I just want to end off by saying, don't sell yourself short with sex. Go Tantra. Don't have sex for sex sake, but have sex for spirituality's sake. And to quote a famous Pink Floyd song, set controls for the heart of the sun. Set controls for the heart of the sun. And it will awaken your spiritual powers. It'll awaken your siddhis. It's a Sanskrit word for psychic powers, spiritual powers. When you do it, you will evolve these things. If you don't do it, they'll evolve more slowly. Or they won't evolve at all. And evolution is the solution. So, go Tantra.